Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there. It's Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive. This is episode 147, which is really about my epic 63rd birthday in many ways. And I have to apologize because apparently 146 loaded with the same name as 145. But the name of 146 was actually all better because I am and I was by my birthday. And I'm not going to go on and on about apple cider vinegar again, I promise you. If you go to the show notes, you will see pictures of us, particularly in the beginning, celebrating with our decorations in the house and the simply epic cake that my son made me for my birthday. That was his present. He made his very first ever cake. And this is a story unto itself because he set out to find a keto cake. He looked it up, he wrote it down, and then he put it together. And you would think, since my birthday was on Monday, on Labor Day, that he would just get up and, gather the ingredients and put it together on Labor Day. But when my two boys do a project, well, they started on Saturday. After 1 hour, I locked myself in my bedroom for a while in my study because I went out there after 1 hour and they were looking for cake pans. And this resulted in emptying many cabinets in the kitchen. And my husband saying, "Oh no, those are very dirty." And then the next thing I knew, all the cabinets were being cleaned and reorganized. That's not a bad birthday present, but it certainly is weird when you're trying to make a birthday cake. So I went out there about 2 hours later and they were mopping up chocolate ganache off the floor. And so I left. And I came back many, many hours later, and it was actually in the oven. And it turned into a fabulous cake with an insanely good 3 layers of chocolate cake made with almond flour, but very, very light and fluffy, and covered with an insanely delicious cream cheese chocolate ganache. And you can see me there blowing out the candles. There were not 63 candles. I think that might have killed me. There were, I believe, something like 54 at one point. And you can see me blowing them out and then simply unable to breathe and suggesting perhaps some form of mouth-to-mouth resuscitation would be necessary. And you can see the proud baker sitting in front of a heaping wedge of this cake. This cake was the first layer cake I have had since I got diagnosed with diabetes 5.5 years ago. It was fabulous. It was delicious. It was surprisingly light and airy for something using almond flour. Maybe those 6 eggs had something to do with it and the ½ pound of baking powder. At any rate, it was good, but you had to eat it in small slices. And of course, we did have the mandatory silly string party afterwards. You can see a picture of me covered and my son, who promptly gave up the field and collapsed when he got hit. The great thing about the silly string party was my son was like, no, I'm not coming outside because we do them outside now so we don't have to peel the stuff off our house for the rest of the year. And so, of course, you knew how that would go. We ambushed him the minute he walked out the front door. However, to ambush him, I had to take a hit from my husband who realized the kid wasn't going to come out until they were screaming. So somehow I ended up with silly string in my mouth. Reminder, don't open your mouth in a silly string fight. This is kind of the birthday party equivalent of don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Anyway, so there you can see pictures of the epic battle after it was over. In the warm thanks department, thanks to everybody who sent birthday greetings any way they could. Thank you to everybody still supporting CFR 2023. Tina, just when I despaired, she sent us wonderful samples for the goodie bags. Tina, really, I can't make out the link on the samples. Please, if you can, message me anywhere you can, any way you can, to give me a link I can send our people to. These soaps smell divine. And it's just wonderful. I am going to point out, no, the vendors weren't required to do this, but let me tell you how grateful I am that Tina did. In the meantime, Twin Set Jan, well known as one of the Twin Set hostesses of the Twin Set podcast, she has said that she wants to contribute to our goodie bags, which would be great, particularly if she's selling things from her beautiful farm out in the Lancaster region of Pennsylvania. She even hinted that she might come. Oh, Jan, come, come. I am now sending you my mystic Dr. Gemma vibes. Come, everybody. It's like kind of like what she used to do in Peter Pan, where in the middle of the play, Peter Pan, Tinkerbell gets greased, and you have to like hope and wish and whatever you do or clap, I forget, to bring her back. Okay, so all you listeners, come on now. Put your hand on your forehead like Dr. Gemma is. Lean back into the chair. Avoid focusing on your overstuffed tummy from dinner and instead focus all your energy to make Twin Set Jan come to us. Come to us, Jan. Okay. The Cognitive Fiber Retreat, all the info, there is a link in the show notes. It says all info is right here, and here is the link. It is an info thread on the Ravelry group. In brief, it is still on Saturday, November 11th. Currently, we have 43 attendees, so we have space for 7 more people. I've taken everybody off the list who hasn't paid because I tried to nudge everybody and got some responses and a lot of nope, ignoring you. So that's okay. But remember, we have 7 openings. Anybody you have who wants to come, very, very welcome. We are building up a collection of lovely things for raffling as well as the goodie bags. I still have not figured out how we're going to do the bags themselves, like what I'm going to have them made out of. That's my research right now. Do not panic. Please, please, please remember that if you bring a bear, knitted or crocheted, for Mother Bear Project, you get an extra raffle ticket. We have a very nice donation, by the way, for the raffle of a skein of fingering weight yarn from Mustache Yarns. Mustache did a national park series of colorways, and they decided to donate all their take from one of them called Hawaii Volcanoes to the Relief Fund for Maui. So we have that. That will be a raffle prize among many other delightful raffle prizes. So thank you to that donor. I think I forgot to say the really important thing. If you want to come to the retreat and you are not already signed up, at this point it's going to be first come, first serve. So go to the information thread. You can see how to pay me. It's $35. And basically the next 6 people who pay me are getting in. And that will be that. Meanwhile, let's see what else we got going on here. In the meantime, everything else you need to know is on the information thread and also on the show notes. And we are on the show notes for episode 147, which will have been published 4 or 5 days by the time you hear that. We are going to have a yarn exchange. That's the latest thing I've added, which is we'll just have a table. And if you bring yarn and you want to trade yarn, or if you just want to donate yarn, we have several requests for where that yarn will go. So I'm pretty happy about that. Let's move on to what's on my hooks and needles. Well, now that Trusty the sewing machine is back and installed in all her glory on my desktop again, I finally finished those 2 pairs of the shorts from Simplicity Pattern 8558. This is a modern pattern. This isn't one of my vintage ones. And I'm really, really happy about that. Turned out what was wrong was the machine benefited from being oiled. There's no question. It hadn't been oiled in about 4 years. However, frankly, my needle was too dull to go through this fine weave broadcloth fabric. So I get it home, it's still not working right, and you guessed it, I changed the needle in an act of desperation and everything went great till I broke the needle. I have no idea quite what I did to do that. So we went on to spare needle number 2 because I do keep me a lot of needles around the house. And so now I'm good at changing the needle too. But you can see both the pair of shorts in a very dark navy and a nice dark purple. I'm really, really happy with them. And I think I'm done with my shorts. I think I've got 5 pairs of shorts. I will probably save the pattern because shorts don't hold up long. They tend to wear through at the waistband with the elastic in my experience. So these are not going to last me 30 years like my skirts have done. But it's really nice to have the 5 of them, and it's an easy enough pattern if I want to do more. Also, now that I got Trusty back, I was able to finish the waistband elastic on the lane splitter that I had it like tacked together, and I actually ran it through the machine, so that's solidly on there. And then of course I could finish whip stitching that lovely cotton knit waistband down on the inside. So I have the lane splitter, and to say it looks good is an understatement. It looks great. If I do say so myself, I can't recommend it enough. It is a very loose fabric, and so I think this is why you always see people wearing it with leggings underneath it. I bought muslin to line it, but I am unsure if I want to line it or just leave it as it is. It's a fantastic skirt. I think the muslin would interfere with the drape, so I'm really happy with it right now. We'll see what happens there. In progress, Stash Toss 2023. Well, I decided I'm going to knit the Estrella sweater from Bad Wolf Girl Knits. And so my 3 sweaters from her for the year are going to be the Llama Love, the Superstition with the lovely black cats, and then the Estrellas. I will be adapting the Estrellas because there are parts of the design that I'm not that big on, and I just love having the collar style sweater with the rest in solid. And on this collar, I just want the phases of the moon. I think that is just fantastic. And I have ordered for that 2 skeins of Malabrigo Rios in the colorway Sunset that is gorgeous. It wasn't easy to find either. It sold out almost immediately when it got restocked at my various resources. And Happiness of Happiness, I also have ordered quite a lot of Merino Superwash yarn from Lisa Souza in the colorway St. Louis Blues, and that will be the background of the Estrellas. It's a semi-solid darker blue, and I love it. The Llama Love sweater, I now have finished the body. Oh, it's insane. You can see a picture of it. I just love it. And so we are on to Sleeve Island. I have about 500 yards left to do the sleeves. Cross your fingers. One of the things I've learned from this is that this was on size 7 needles, and so is the Superstition. I could easily go to size 8s. And I probably will when I get to the Estrellas. That I think the size 7, it fits. I mean, I got the 38-inch fit I wanted. We'll see how the Llama Love blocks. But I may do Estrellas on my size 8s or even my size 9s to get a slightly looser fit. This fit is okay. The Llama Love fit's okay, but it's eating yarn like there's no tomorrow. So I might want to rethink going to a little less yarn. The Superstition sweater, I'm working on the cats, the big cats, and then it's just some little floral motifs, little Peeries under the cat's feet. And we'll see if I do those. The interesting thing is there is no mark on the sweater's color work for where you break for the sleeves. All the other patterns in the fall set that you buy it as a package, the fall collection, and the Superstition is like number 4 or 5 or something. All the others have breaks, but they have their breaks in all these other places. So it's really hard to know where Megan intended the break to be. So I don't believe I have any corrections on it. I'm going to go see if I can find them. Nonetheless, I can make this decision on my own after I try on the top. It's not that hard a thing to do. I wanted to show you my beautiful, beautiful floats on the back. I'm really enjoying this. And the cats in a slightly darker purple than what you see there are coming out quite gloriously. It's a very wonderful pattern as she has worked it. So hopefully I will be able to show you the finished row of the cats. In the meantime, you can see that we went to Joann Fabrics for my birthday. I had a gift card from the beloved, and I did pick up some lovely things. I thought I was going there for the watercolor art supplies, but somehow, muslin and a skirt length of that lovely flannel got into my cart, probably because the muslin was $2.60 a yard, and believe it or not, the flannel was $2 a yard. I already have fabric to make a full circle skirt covered with black cats with no other color but black and little cat eyes and white ears sticking out. So this I couldn't resist, pale orange with little kittens, black kittens wrapped around little pumpkins. But I said, I don't want a full circle, so I'm just going to make one of my regular waistbanded skirts with that. So that should go along pretty quickly. And it was a very satisfying run because you can see also I gave into the fat quarters on sale. They had these packets of Halloween colors that I've been looking at for weeks, and they were also idiotically priced. Like the whole packet is usually like $12 or something, and they had them for $2 or $3. So I bought 3 of those. I don't care what I make out of them. They may be their own little quiltlet. They may be some kind of tabletop padding. I don't care. They're so beautiful. I'll find something. I am a glutton for fabric leftovers. I love the beautiful extra fat quarters and the striped bundles. What do they call them? Jelly rolls. I love all that stuff. I just go crazy on color. I could just pet them all day. The heck with making something, but I probably will. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hey, Gemma, you're doing all the blather now. Yes, I am. So, Dizzy Blondes, not much. Still collecting fur balls from Minerva, but not really spinning them right now. I have some work to do on those, but I want to get through my current basket full of projects first. So, that will bring us to a strategy. Last week I talked about managing your social media. And over again, the issue that is related to that also comes up in therapy, and that is boredom. Why are we talking about managing social media? Because we don't manage our time well. We are bored, and our kids are bored. Now, those of you who are boomers, remember what happened when you told your parents you were bored. Our parents survived the Great Depression and the Second World War, and they survived it by working their buns off. So if you told our parents you were bored, you know what they said. They found you something to do, and you usually didn't like it. Like, oh, maybe you should weed the 2-acre garden. Or maybe it's time to vacuum every house in the neighborhood. Or that's what it felt like. So when I grew up, one of the things you learned to never say is, I am bored. This is probably why you're all listening to this podcast. Not because you're bored, but because you're knitting. Because you want to take a break and you're listening to a friendly voice. And you're sitting down, and this is a nice moment to sit down and do something productive while enjoying yourself. This is the skill we have. I actually had one of my colleagues refer to me as Amish. Now I am, but she didn't know that. She just said, oh man, you are so Amish. You just sit around and make all these things. And it's like, no, actually, I'm so Amish because I'm descended from them. But also, yes, I was raised in a culture, and Amish did contribute strongly to my upbringing, that I was raised in a culture of you must work. Idle hands are the devil's playground, as the nuns used to say. That you should always be occupied. You should be busy. This gets a lot of flack. I just was looking at a meme on Facebook that said, if we were indigenous, we would know that we don't have to achieve. We can just be. And that's true. And that's beautiful. And that's mindfulness. And that's very doable. But the fact of the matter is, kids, some of us like to achieve. Some of us like to create and to make. And you know why? Because we're bored. And you can be bored and sit there and doom scroll through social media. How's that making you feel? Because the fact of the matter is, when we were kids, we would watch the news, and the news was supposed to be objective, and they tried to be fair. And we were doing pretty well for a large part of my life until, Rupert Murdoch showed up in town. But the reality was, that news was filtered. That they were keeping images off that were too graphic. They didn't want to disturb people. It was very disturbing when we thought they might be hiding things from us for the Vietnam War. But at the same time, they were aware that little kids could be watching this. So we had prime time, and then we had the news at 11, and that's where you put the kids to bed. And then they could show you the horrible stuff. And in those days, strangely, you very rarely heard a therapist say, don't watch the news. But we do it all the time now because it's all unfiltered. And social media is all unfiltered. So you can see really graphic, horrifying things on social media, and it's not good for you. I was flicking through reels on Facebook the other night, and I started getting all these really violent reels of cops dragging people down and bounty hunters and everything. And I realized my heart rate was pounding. And yet it was addictive. And so I just finally said no and stopped myself. And that's the problem, is these things are addictive. We are mammals. We are not the top of the food chain despite our delusions. For example, nobody eats a mountain lion, but a mountain lion eats us. That pretty much tells you we're still prey to some animals, okay? As prey animals, we are attracted to rapid and repetitive motion. That's why we can't stop staring at these things on TikTok, because as mammals, we have to watch out for danger. So frankly, if you want to calm yourself down and live a peaceful, mindful life, you have to turn those things off because they're dulling you to danger. You're used to rapid, repetitive motion now. Will you respond if it's actually something that's going to hurt you? I don't know. But I do know it's not good for you to raise your cortisol, to raise your stress hormones by doing this. But that means you're going to have boredom. Your kids are going to have boredom. And yeah, by the way, that applies to television too. That's why we stare at the television for so long. So you have to have boredom, and you have to train your kids to do something else, and you have to train yourself. Now, there's an overlap here. I can hear a lot of you saying, but Gemma, I watch movies at night, and I knit while I watch a movie. Okay, I'm okay with that. You're knitting. If you're Amish, you have the concept of the quilting bee, where everybody sits around and quilts while they chat about the neighborhood news. And the men are in the background building a barn or something. So, that's acceptable. But again, you have to think, if I do too much of that, how much does that stop me from interacting with my community and my neighbors? So this is sort of part 2 of that issue I talked about last week in the strategy about managing your media. And what I'm really saying is there are so many other things to do when you manage your media properly. I should know this. Last year I learned a new language. That makes language number 10. Okay, and I do these things because I don't want to lie on my deathbed someday, pardon my morbidness, and think, gosh, I wish I had ... I wish I had talked to more people. I wish I had had more fun. I wish I had socialized more. I wish I had improved my relationships with my family members. Let me tell you something. I've never heard anybody on their deathbed say, wow, I sure wish I had played more video games. That what people want out of life, what they realize when they get down to that last moment of it's over, it's really over, and we don't know what comes next, despite our various beliefs and faiths. You don't know till you go there. Or worse, you don't. The point is, when everybody realizes they're down to the last moments of this plane of existence, they're wishing for more human contact. They're missing family members. They're looking forward to being comforted by family members in another world. They're not sitting around saying, oh, if only I had played that video game more. And the idea is life is rich, and you have to live it while you're here, and you have to do things. So my current project is learning how to paint. Why? I doubt I'll be able to sell my paintings, but it's just a beautiful thing. It's so fulfilling to create and design. And that's all you need. And you're never going to get that out of social media. You may get the occasional laugh. And yes, while we're on that subject, yes, I actually do get on social media. I'm no more pure than the rest of you. But the idea is you want your life to be much more rich. And you have to train your children, because they're growing up in this time that's extremely challenging, where there's doom scrolling and hopelessness all over social media, and yet they're so attracted to it. And we didn't have this when we were young, so we have to learn to manage it, and we have to teach them how to manage it. There isn't a model here unless we make it ourselves. And so, you can manage your social media in other ways, and you can use it to support activity and to support movement. So, for example, today on my social media, I found out that Yarnopoly, the local knitting group, one of the 2 local knitting groups, as it turns out, in Santa Clarita, is meeting this Saturday. Now, that's me using social media for a good purpose. I found a meetup. And also, this could be applied to the fact Knit Disney is this weekend. It's on Sunday. Ooh, I'm so tempted to go down Saturday night. But I'm not a big Disney fan right now, and I haven't got tickets for the park. I don't know. But at any rate, social media is bringing me this. Social media has told me there's a meeting this weekend as well of the Antelope Valley gardeners, and I'm considering going to that just to meet people and see how people garden and learn and get inspiration. So when you're using social media to support connection, that's wonderful. To support activity, hobbies, that's wonderful. But if you're just using it because you're doom scrolling for boredom, I would really say you need to stop it. That's not good for your health. It's not good for any part of your health. You're not getting exercise. You're not getting fresh air. you're not using your brain, you're not appropriately stimulating your brain, you're not getting outdoors. Yes, it's true, most people have allergies in their house that significantly reduce when they get outside because of the better air circulation. So the important thing here, manage your social media, but you can manage it so that it supports activity, social connectedness, and movement. You can go and find the local meetings of the things that you're interested in. There's so many good things on social media. That's what it's for. If you're just bored and you're scrolling, frankly, it's time to clean the bathroom. That's what my mother would tell you. On to the fluffy books. Well, I started the Smythe Smith series. This is by Julia Quinn, who wrote the Bridgerton books. The Smythe Smith family is a running gag in the background of the Bridgerton books, that they have these monthly musicales or musical galas, and none of them can play. And none of them know it, but there's always one person involved in the making of the music who does know it and is suffering acutely. And all the other characters go to these things because they feel sad for these poor Smythe Smith girls. And at the same time, they're always commenting on it. Well, Julia Quinn finally sat down and wrote the story of the Smythe Smiths. I started the first one and I got interrupted by Frog Kisser, which I'm still in the middle of. I'm enjoying Frog Kisser a great deal, and I don't want to tell you why, but it is just this kind of game with Tolkien-esque themes in the background. I do recommend it. It's by Garth Nix. I would read the guy's phone book. He's such a fun writer. Something I really like, you're never going to believe this, the dollar store. Yes, the dollar store. While I was managing my social media, I found this woman making TikTok videos about all the craft stuff at the dollar store. Now, her dollar store is a super dollar store. I don't think we have any of them anywhere near me in Southern California. But I was inspired to go look at the dollar store, and I considered it sort of stalking the unknown. I only had a few minutes, but I went up and down the aisles without food, and I found some very interesting things. Picture frames. Everything, first of all, was $1.25 now, but even so, picture frames. No, they were dried out and the wood was stapled together. It cracked in my lap as I tried to open the frame to put in a picture. Okay, but I only lost $1.25. I'm not feeling too bad, the price of education. What did I get that was great? Well, for one thing, I got a rack for my paintbrushes. And this thing, I spent $5.25 at the dollar store. I would have paid that just for this rack. It's great. It's just 2 plastic discs, and they're perforated, and the bottom one has sort of a solid bottom on it, and it's got these 3 little plastic legs you use to connect the discs, and your paintbrushes and pencils stand in it. Fabulous. Paintbrushes, not so much. I didn't like them too much, but they do have nylon bristle paintbrushes. Let me tell you, you can buy the same thing online in an art store. You can buy it in Joann's or Michael's. They're not going to be this cheap. They had entire sets of 3 for $1. Watercolors, they had them, but they're very, very dry, and the colors were sort of flipping out of their little wells in the palette. But they did have it. They did have canvas. They had gouache paints, and they had acrylics. I didn't buy those, but I was impressed. I did buy some Halloween tomfoolery. I did see yarn. They had acrylic yarn and cotton yarn for $1 a skein. Now the acrylic I wasn't really impressed with. I really don't think it was a savings. I think if you buy like the Pound of Love at Joann's, you're going to pay the same. However, the cotton yarn was a good price, and it was cotton yarn. And it wasn't especially soft, but if you want to knit with cotton or crochet with cotton, it looked perfectly fine. They had a few colors, not a whole lot, but I was rather impressed by that, I must admit. So that was my trip to the dollar store. The other thing they had that I liked, lots of notebooks. If you want blank books, that is a place to go. Huge amount of school supplies. That seemed really good. So yeah, the dollar store, I think it's one of those places that you should go and roam through. Oh, the other thing I always get, I get cheesecloth. I used to use it for my canning. I still use it occasionally in cooking as a filter. It's organic, so if you filter anything through it, just go bury it in your yard. It'll compost. But I do get cheesecloth there. So every now and then, I think you need to go and just roam through the dollar store and see what you can see. Oh, the other thing, yeah, I keep saying, oh, the other thing. But I was really impressed with, they had $1 Hallmark cards, and they were great. I really resent paying $6 or $7 now for the cards you get at Target or wherever. I have to say, I think cards are just overpriced. I think it's what you write in the card to the person you're giving it to that matters. I told this to my husband, who promptly looked at me and said, buy me the $7 cards. He really likes greeting cards. I'm not a big fan. I've always thought we're killing trees for nothing. And now I'm in the place of, I'd rather paint you something and give you that. Oh, the hubris. I really think my watercolors are sometimes that good. Oh, well. But something I really like, the dollar store. Go stalk those places, see what you can find. By the way, when I was treating kids, that was like a treasure trove of toys you could use in therapy and not go broke. Put a lid on it. Tea tasting. I keep meaning to taste my new teas, but I don't. From Plum Deluxe, I mean. What I did today was I went back to my autumnal teas. I thought, I'm not ready for pumpkin spice. Well, actually, but I didn't have any. What I had was the apple cinnamon from Harney's. Now, you may remember, I'm not a big Harney's fan because they really won't tell you if they're sugaring their tea. They will say elusive things like, diabetics can drink this. So I hear that as, yes, we're sugaring our tea. We're soaking our leaves in sugar to enhance the flavor. And we believe it's safe for diabetics because, hey, it's only a teaspoon of tea. Well, guess what? As a diabetic, I'm going to take in carbs helplessly that I don't want. So any place I can avoid carbs, I'm going to avoid them. And that includes Harney's, but I am drinking my supply down. I have some apple cinnamon, some pumpkin spice left. I will tell you in Harney's, one, they make some nice tins. You can buy 4 ounces and it comes in a tin. Those are good tins. I've enjoyed relabeling them with my Plum Deluxe labels, but keeping the tins. They're nice to store your tea. Easy to clean, all that good stuff. 2, the cinnamons. They have a lot of different cinnamon variations. Okay, maybe my taste buds are dull. They all taste the same to me. But I've enjoyed them. They are quite good. The hot cinnamon, the apple cinnamon, cinnamon, whatever. They're really very nice. But I am now a Plum Deluxe and Snarky fan because those two companies guarantee they're not using sugar in their tea process, and I'm there for that. Good heavens, we're on the blather already. Look at that. Well, I've told you about the Joann's run. We also went for sushi and had a delicious meal together and then did our Joann's run. And you knew the boys were sacrificing because they took me to Joann's. Of course, they went next door because there was a Halloween spirit store. And they were real happy doing that. I didn't get a chance to go around that store, which is okay. I'm not going to be tempted. I really spent enough at Joann's. At Joann's, I had $50, and I actually went $20 over it. And I'm not really sure why. I think it was because I bought several sets of good brushes and some sponges for my artwork. And I believe I bought something else for my artwork, but I'm darned if I can remember what. Some fine point pens. And then I got the fat quarters and the muslin and the cat's fabric. I'm a little tormented about the muslin, what I'm actually going to do with it, but I think I'm going to make it into just my 9-seam skirt. Just make it into, in other words, a petticoat. Because I don't think it's going to fly as a lining. I think I'm just going to try the lane splitter without it. Actually, what I'm going to do is put the lane splitter on over one of my petticoats. And this will probably be the one. I'll probably trim it down so I can wear the lane splitter with or without, but I don't want to attach the lane splitter to it. So that was lovely. It was just such a nice birthday. I had such a good time with my boys. I have to be really honest about that. As you can see, the pup date, Captain and Queenie. Queenie has to go get her annual and her rabies. And I've been kind of putting that off, but that needs to be done. Watercolors, no real action there. The Hubs date, well, Project G, that is Project Garage. It's amazing. On September 11th, today, we had about 95 boxes out. And the boys have started systematically cleaning the garage. And that's been really satisfying. I really didn't expect that. I didn't ask them to help. But the Hubs especially has been doing some great things back there. It's still a disaster, but it's a better disaster than it was a week ago, let me tell you. One of the things that came out of this was my husband found a big box of my journals, handwritten. And the first one I opened was only partly filled, and it was my week in Iceland in 1992. And I looked at it and I said, I do not want these books lying around. I really would like to finish using up this book and then just move it out, because now who's going to ever want this? But I said, I don't want to give up this journal. So what I did was I started Project T, as in transcribe. And I started reading the journal and occasionally hand typing in some of the Icelandic words into a Word file. And then any images in the journal, leftover receipts from restaurants, little maps I drew, I scanned them and added them in the appropriate place. This was really satisfying, so I went to the next book, and it's a heart stopper. It's my journal when I first left America to live in Europe. And it's really a bomb. It goes right to the last page. So it's going to be a lot of reading, and it's very dried out. So I'm glad to transcribe this. This is kind of a heart stopper, because when I went to Europe, I thought I was staying there for 2 years. 2 months into it, I find out my father is dying, and I go home. So a lot of this journal is about the process of being with him as he's dying, and then running the business that I inherited from him. It makes me tense to think about it, but I think it's a great thing. So I've started transcribing it, that is, dictating it into a Word file. So it's kind of intriguing, and you can see I have the beautiful little bookmark there. I might be able to date that to 1992. In the beginning of the journal in Iceland, I say, I am working on a petty point. That doesn't look like a petty point to me. That looks like a crowned cross stitch, but nonetheless, it's very, very fine. It's over a single thread of a very, very high thread count woven bookmark. So that might be from 1992. Oh, darn, it's only 30 years old, not 40 years old. But I don't know why it was on the floor of the garage. It could be that the Hubs picked up the top book in the journal box, which was the Icelandic diary, and it fell out. I suspect that might be it. So I'm using it as a bookmark to keep my place as I work my way through transcribing the diaries. So this should be a pretty exciting week. It is a bit emotional. It really surprised me. The Green Fingers report. Well, let me tell you. There's some good and there's some bad. First of all, yeah, they got one of the milkweeds, the rodents. There's still one alive last time I looked. I can't bear to go out there and look. What is making me happy is that the hummingbird mint, which is a hyssop, is going like crazy. It's just doing wonderfully. The other thing that happened, speaking of losing milkweed, is the milkweed crop at my plant supplier just died. They had a fail. So they refunded my money, but I traded that to buy more plants that I thought might spread really well and that are very local around here. So I got a bunch of Russian sage, a bunch of lavenders. I am allergic to lavender, but I do love it. And I thought putting it by the driveway, between the driveway and the front corral, hey, it'll be far from me and it'll be beautiful. And I got some dianthus because I want something that will creep along the ground. I want to cover a lot of our main area. Instead of putting astroturf on it or something, I want to see if we can get a creeping plant to take it over. And so these are all on sale this week because they are enormously sun-loving and easy to grow. And that's what I want. So milkweed, I don't know if we'll ever go back to it. I really wanted milkweed. I really wanted it for the butterflies. But speaking of which, you remember the spearmint. The spearmint had, at my encouragement, covered up the roots of our hawthorn tree that died, dear old Nathaniel. But there were these holes on the other side of the big growth of spearmint where the spearmint had grown, but it had gone into canes, like hard wooden canes, and then it just wasn't growing in those spots. And I've been over there talking to it, and then I walked out the other day, and it's loaded with spearmint. It just like overnight filled the space. Even better, it blossomed. Bees everywhere. Bees everywhere. I don't know where these guys are coming from. I don't know of a local hive, but bees all over it. This was the goal, to get pollinators going. I didn't think it was going to be my spearmint, but I am extremely happy. So, by this point, they are probably just about to ship the sage, lavender, and dianthus. I'm getting like 9 plants. So hopefully I'm going to get the boys to go up and tear out part of the driveway strip for me with their shovels, and then we will be able to plant these guys. I am really hoping, and I am really looking forward to this. So we'll see. You know, this is all experimental. What will grow here? On the calendar, well, I'm in my first week of Monday to Friday. I've been confused all day. It's Monday. As I record this, it is Monday, September 11th at 8:35 p.m. No, I'm not going to talk about that anniversary. I got enough trauma for any 5 people based on that. I can say my respects. It's one of the great tragedies of American history, but I don't want to go into it because I'd like to be in a good place tonight. So thank you for respecting that. My heartfelt sympathies to other people who are feeling the burn tonight. In the meantime, though, I am on my Monday to Friday schedule, and I've been confused all day about, is this Tuesday? Is this Monday? What the heck am I doing? I did think it was Tuesday for a large part of the day. And it's very weird that I have 3 days in a row now that run 10 to 6 instead of 2, and then a Thursday running noon to 7 or 8. It's all very weird. I'm getting used to it, but I have to say it is really surprisingly nice to have Saturdays off. It was very weird that I kept thinking on Sunday that it was Monday, because that's usually my second day off, and I kept wondering why all these people were around instead of being at work. Despite that, it's really nice to have the Saturdays. If I want to go places, if I want to go to knit meets, if I want to go down to Knit Disney and all that, I can do it with a lot less stress. Oh yeah, meanwhile, we're on the calendar, right? So the Cognitive Fiber Retreat is on Saturday, November 11th, 2023. Remember, we still have, 7 open places there? And remember also, I doubt we're going to keep it on this date every year. I suspect we're going to move it back into October because other bigger festivals have sprung up around the time that Stitches used to be. A lot of corporate festivals are trying to take advantage of that date. So I will be looking for other dates to settle it on if we're going to do it again, if people want to do this in 2024. And so I'm very, very interested in any dates that people can suggest, and I'm very, very interested in locations. And if everybody's okay with having it in Valencia, then great. In the meantime, the Evolution of Psychotherapy Conference will be in Anaheim, California, at the Convention Center, which is right on top of Disneyland. That is December 12th through 17th. I believe I will be there the afternoon of the 14th. I should be arriving, and I will probably leave midday on the 17th after the last sessions. I need to get as much in there as I can. I have put in for the vacation time for this, and for Romule, and for Thanksgiving Friday, so wish me luck. And Minerva gets the last word, and you can see her lying there in front of our beautiful handmade blanket chest. And she's being the void, as you can see. There's nothing of her except her eyes. And you can see a little bit of her tail and a little bit of light on her forehead. And so Minerva is lying there, and I'm looking into the void when I look at her, and the void's looking right back at me. And then the void meowed and asked for dinner. Because remember, we will all look into the void from time to time. And it's good to remember that the void, in some cases, just wants you to feed it and be nice to it. So when you are feeling empty and like you're looking into the void, perhaps you should feed yourself and be nice to yourself. And that's what Minerva wants you to know. On that happy note, my goodness, we have a long, long list of links to my favorite resources. Look at all those people I love. Look at that. They're wonderful. We love you guys. I'm so excited for the Cognitive Fiber Retreat. Yes, COVID. Yes, masks. Yes, you know this. Yes, get your shots. I tried to get my RSV shot. My insurance doesn't cover it. $330. We're still thinking about that financial decision because it is a big one. In the meantime, though, COVID, remember that. Do what you got to do. We will do our best in November is what I would really say to you. One advantage of going to the Cognitive Fiber Retreat instead of a big fiber fest is that it's far less likely, despite the level of friendly and cozy intimacy that knitters have together at a retreat, it's far less likely to be a mob scene where COVID will be in the air. Think about it. But please, whatever you do, think about coming if you hadn't planned on it. We're looking forward to it. And please take care of yourself, everybody. You know the drill. When we take care of others, we take care of ourselves. When we take care of ourselves, we take care of others. So everybody, please stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.